Dear friends, welcome to the World War II Front Channel. On the eve of the battle for Berlin, the Smish military counterintelligence agencies were tasked with finding and arresting Hitler and other leaders of Nazi Germany. After the capture of the Führer bunker on the 2nd of May 1945 and the detention by the Smish authorities of the SS men who were in the bunker and tried to escape from Berlin, a painstaking collection of information about the possible locations of all the top leaders of the Third Reich began. Among the witnesses of the last days of the Nazi Führer were personal pilot, commander of the Führer squadron Hans Bohr, in some sources, translators mistakenly listed as Hans Bauer. Today we will continue to study the testimony of Hitler's personal pilot from the declassified archives of the FSB of Russia. You can also get acquainted with other parts of the interrogation on our channel. So let's continue. Page 3. There was an opinion among Hitler's inner circle, which we have repeatedly discussed among ourselves, that apparently Hitler still has the means to bring the war to a successful end. We assumed the presence of some new secret weapon, like an atomic bomb or death rays of unprecedented power, which should bring us victory. However, 6 weeks before the end of the war, Robert Ley told us that he was going to a man to get acquainted with the death rays invented by him on the spot. Albert Speer, who was present at the same time, doubted the veracity of this message, and indeed, a few days later Robert Ley, who returned from the experiments, confirmed that this invention was a bluff. Ambassador Walter Heuvel-Ribbentrop's contact and confidant, in March 1945, once spoke extremely pessimistic about the prospects of war. Joseph Goebbels began to scold him terribly at dinner and yelled at him, so that Heuvel had to apologize. Goebbels repeated everything at the same time: "We still won't lose the war, unless everyone thinks like you." By the time the Russians reached the Oder and activated the Western Front, doubts began to arise in the Supreme Headquarters about the expediency of further stay in Berlin. In the city itself they began to prepare for defense. In mid-March 1945, as it became known to me, the military adjutants prepared the relocation of the headquarters on the Baltic Sea coast to the area south-east of the city of Flensburg. It is possible that this was the rate of Admiral Dornitz. In any case, by the beginning of April, we had everything ready to move to the north, or to the Berghof south. During all this time, despite the optimistic mood of Hitler and Goebbels, others, we discussed among ourselves the possibility of fleeing abroad. These conversations were conducted either at the table or after lunch in the recreation room. Among those present at such conversations I recall Generals Jodl, Feglein, Rattenhuber, Colonel von Beloff, Admiral von Puttkamer, head of the Imperial Press Department Dietrich, and Lorenz. At the same time, everyone who saw Hitler, and especially Feglein, who saw him more often than others, declared that Hitler would not agree to escape from Germany in any case. Bormann told me the same thing. On my own initiative, I still tried all the time to keep 3 Condor planes, and several Junkers 52 planes in Berlin for my detachment, in case Hitler changed his mind and agreed to leave Berlin. I myself also engaged in the preparation of 3 Junkers 290 aircraft with a range of action when replacing passenger seats with additional gas tanks of 6,000 to 8,000 kilometers. The normal range of the Junkers 290 was 2,500 kilometers. In mid-March I visited the airfield of the Junkers factories in Dessau on the Junkers 290 aircraft. There I saw the aircraft Junkers 390, which was shown to us in the autumn of 1943. This 6-engine aircraft can take 30,000 liters of gasoline and has a range of about 10,000 kilometers. I did not talk about this plane with Hitler, knowing that he knows its presence and range of action. I did not conduct any special training of the Junkers 390 aircraft. Page 4. My planes were located at the beginning of April at Berlin, Gatow Airfield, Fittenwald, Rangsdorf, Tempelhof, Schoenwald, and Riechlin Airfield. Goebbels always tried to influence Hitler in an optimistic spirit, since it was quite clear to him that he himself would not be able to leave Berlin. I heard him say to Hitler once, "If the Russians take it into their heads to attack Berlin, then we will give them such a fight here that they will get hot." From the beginning of April, Goebbels began to report daily to Hitler on the preparations for the defense of Berlin. In early April, Hitler made it clear in conversations with us that he was staying in Berlin to give a decisive battle here. We did not like it. Feglein told me in this regard, "This stubborn Hitler cannot be persuaded. All persuasions are in vain. I am just sick of such stubbornness." When the Russian troops launched a decisive offensive by crossing the Oder River, more than 30 Volksturm battalions were withdrawn from the immediate defense of Berlin and thrown to the place of breakthrough. At the beginning of April 1945, Colonel von Beloff informed me of the decision to turn the east-west axis highway into a landing pad in case of encirclement of Berlin. Sections were prepared from the Brandenburg Gate to Friedensengel, and further to the city railway station. Trees were cut down in the Tiergarten to increase the width of the landing site to 80 meters. However, the highway was concrete and in case of bombing could easily be destroyed, which subsequently happened during artillery shelling. At the beginning of April, everyone began to prepare vigorously for evacuation. Piles of files of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Imperial Chancellery were piled up in bonfires and burned. Albert Bormann, the head of Hitler's personal chancellery, equipped columns of cars and sent them to the south. Albert Bormann himself left on the 15th of April for Berchtesgaden, after which air traffic with Berlin was interrupted and the evacuation continued by planes. On about the 10th of April, Goering came to say goodbye to Hitler, who decided to leave Berlin for Berchtesgaden before the Russian and American troops joined. Goering himself tried unsuccessfully to persuade Hitler to leave. Goering was accompanied by General Christian, who said to me at parting, "You should leave too, it's madness to stay in Berlin." The next day we received news that they had arrived safely in Salzburg. On the 12th of April, Goebbels' wife and her children aged 3 to 11 years arrived at the Imperial Chancellery. She told me that Hitler wanted to send her to Obersorberg, but she told him that, if the struggle ends badly, then her husband will not live anyway, he will commit suicide, because his enemies will torture him anyway, then they will kill him and the children will be taken to Russia as exhibits. Then she told me, if everything ends well, I won't be so stupid and I won't just stay at home anymore, I will live in a big way. Dear friends, that's all for today. Reading this FSB archives, I am really shocked how propaganda could disfigure a person's personality and his consciousness. The statements of Goebbels' wife are worthy of her husband. Do you think the Russians would really take the children as exhibits to Russia? Be sure to write in the comments. It was Tim, and goodbye.